Hey everybody, it's James here with the Sawyer Family Reviews channel and ActionFeatures.net, bringing you another Marvel Select review. This time it's by request, going back all the way to 2006, checking out Mark Spector, The Moon Knight. Let's check him out. Okay, let's start things off with a look at Moon Knight in the package first. Now, this figure is from 2006, but as you can see, the packaging is still pretty much the same nowadays for Marvel Select. And that's because they've maintained a consistent package style throughout their entire line and through multiple licenses. It's a large bubble area to fit either in a figure and his accessory or display base, or a larger figure, multiple characters, whatever. But they made this bubble large to begin with to accommodate a lot of stuff. They've maintained that size throughout. The only thing that are a little bit smaller are Disney Store exclusives where they're concerned about more shelf space. But for the most part, all Marvel Select packaging is this size and this style. We've got Moon Knight written along the side here with the old school Marvel Select logo, special collector edition action figure with highly detailed statue accessory. The panel down below here is Moon Knight's logo, and there's like a little star field there. I don't know if you'll be able to see that in pictures or not, but it's like a star field with the Moon Knight logo. The statue of Khonshu beside him, Moon Knight here. The back panel is reprints of a bunch of Moon Knight comic covers. The panel along the side is a headshot of Moon Knight, which I believe is drawn by David Finch, because I think it's the same or close to the same as that Moon Knight issue 1 cover. So this whole figure is based on this series of comics where they brought Moon Knight back by Charlie Huston, the Moon Knight series back by Charlie Huston and David Finch. The back panel has that comic cover. We've got sculpted by Paul Harding and a picture of the figure with the statue. Other figures available at the time were Watcher and Days of Future Past Wolverine. And then a brief write-up about Moon Knight, which I will now read to you. Wounded in battle, mercenary for hire, Mark Spector was mystically restored to serve as the Moon's Knight of Vengeance. Using his skills to wage a war on crime, Moon Knight's natural abilities in combat are enhanced by the light of the moon, granting him superhuman strength, speed, and agility. Employing an array of sophisticated weaponry and specialized vehicles, Moon Knight prowls the city in search of the one thing the night demands of him: justice. Designed and produced by Toy Biz for Diamond Select. So this was back when Toy Biz was still doing the designs for Marvel Select, before it was really being handled by a bunch of different places. But Toy Biz was executing the figures for them and then releasing them under Marvel Select. All right, so I'm going to open this. I know this is an expensive figure, but let's get him open and check him out. Okay, we got Moon Knight out of the box. I wanted to say really quick, though, a thank you to, I can't remember the person's name, I'm sorry, but on the Facebook Marvel Select community group, I had asked if anybody had any requests for figures they would like to see reviewed, and a person chimed in and said, there's not really a great review up for Moon Knight if you happen to have him. And I do have Moon Knight, so that is why this review is going up. So I appreciated your input, and you were right, there's not a lot of great reviews for this figure up, so thanks for the suggestion. Okay, let's jump right in. So let's start off with just the accessory first. He comes with 2 of these little tiny, I guess they're moon darts, or moonarangs. I'm going to call them moonarangs. I think they're moon darts. Who knows? So he comes with 2 of these little guys. They're both silver, and they've got a nice sculpt to them. There's little detail lines and a couple of rivets in the middle. As always, you'll be able to hit the info section below this video if you're watching it on YouTube, and it'll take you to a gallery so you can see a closer-up view of this. But he comes with 2 of those. They can be held in his left hand, which is sculpted in sort of a gripping form, like his 2 first fingers and his thumb are made to grip them. So they fit in there snugly, and again, you get 2 of them. So let's put that off to the side. And then as you can see, the other big thing is this Khonshu statue base and this rock piece below. I'm going to move Moon Knight out for just a second so we can have a better look at this, because this to me is actually the highlight of the figure, is this base. It's really well sculpted. It's got this cool face on it that has sort of no detailing to it, almost like Moon Knight's mask itself, where it's got golden eyes and I don't believe there's a mouth sculpted on, but it's all flattened with these golden eyes inset. This nice wash all over the entire body. There's this tannish wash with black underneath, a golden belt with a silver detail in front. There's a silver moon. There's golden trim on the hood. He's got one hand outstretched, and there's gold bands on there. The entire thing is hollow, but it is sculpted and painted well, and since this will be on your shelf facing this way, you'd never see that back part anyway. The staff is actually removable, the moon staff. It can't go in Moon Knight's hand, though. His hand is only sculpted to hold those little daggers, so I really don't know why this comes out, but it does come out. The other piece is this moon-shaped stone display area. On the back of the package, they have it sitting in front of the Khonshu statue, and that works. That looks good. It can also sit on its own, though. The only thing is Moon Knight does not have holes in his feet. So there's no pegs on this base. You could have Moon Knight standing on it, and that's kind of cool looking. You could also use this on the Marvel Legend figure if you had it floating around. Here's the current Marvel Legend. It's just a neat moon-shaped base, and it's got the same kind of paint patterning as the statue, where it's a sort of sandy tan with black wash, a bunch of cracks and stuff for the rocks, and then splits in between each panel. This actually has a base to it as well. It's not hollow like that, so it actually has a little bit of heft to it. It's not just a straight-up hollow, cheap-feeling piece. So yeah, this base, this Khonshu statue, is really neat. I dig this very much. It's a cool accessory to include with Moon Knight here. Now let's get into Moon Knight. First of all, this Moon Knight is based on David Finch's art. Back in 2006, when this figure came out, they had relaunched the Moon Knight comic. I'm going to zoom in on him just a little bit here. By Charlie Huston and David Finch doing the art. So this figure is very much based on the Dave Finch Moon Knight. And to me, I can really see it in the detailing. It's got a lot of like detail lines, and it's very sinewy in the sculpt. And I like that. I like artist-based figures. Like when you can look at a figure and go, oh, that's that artist. Like Diamond Select did with their recent Hulks. Well, not super recent, but in the last few years, like the Barbarian Hulk, and I believe he was called Unleashed Hulk, maybe? I can't remember. But those two were based on Mark Silvestri art, and you could tell. This, to me, I can see the Dave Finch work in this sculpt. Now, the figure itself is from 2006. So back then, Marvel Select was not as heavy on the articulation or the paint detailing or anything like they are now. I mean, this was 13 years ago. No company is the same as it was 13 years ago. But I still think this is a pretty decent figure for that time period. Let's jump into articulation first, and we'll talk some more about the sculpt and the paint detailing. First of all, the ankle joints, they do hinge up and down, and there's a bit of a ratchet to them. They can go all the way like that and go down like that. They look as if they're supposed to have a rocker, but it doesn't actually function. And I don't know if it's because the paint is so dried inside there or what, but I cannot get them to go side to side for the life of me. And that makes stances a little tough on this figure, because he constantly has that one foot kind of going off to the side. I can't get his legs to go all the way together to get him to go straight up and down. So that makes that a little bit problematic. Oh, real quick too, since I'm thinking about it and I don't want to forget, I want to show you his height. He stands just a smidge over 7 inches tall with that hood. Okay, back in the articulation. So we have front to back on the heel. We can't get that side to side to move. As I said, there's no peg holes. There is a sculpted detailing on the bottom of the soles, which is also painted silver, but there are no peg holes. He's got a single knee joint, and that is ratcheting and can go back to there. Not a ton of knee movement. The knees are a little odd, too, because it's almost like the sculpt comes down a little too far, maybe, on the knee. I don't know why it looks kind of strange to me, but it's real thin up here, and then it immediately billows out for the calf muscle. Then we've got a swivel at the top of the hip where it meets the pelvis, and these are the old sort of ball-style joints, where there's a ball sitting up here that plugs into the hip. That swivels back and forth. He only goes from there to there, and then it gets hindered by the butt sculpt and the hip sculpt. Then he hinges out, and those are ratcheting. So they ratchet in and out like that. And that's about all the movement you can get. I do like that it stays in one spot. Some of these older Marvel Selects, that this would spin around, and you'd have to line up that hinge joint, whereas this just kind of stays in one spot. It goes forward and back, and then hinges out. So you can't really spin that ball joint around too much to get different movement out of it. Like I said, this one hinges in more than this one does. It seems like this one goes to that spot, and then it will stop, and that's all you can get. The next joint is very odd. It's a waist joint, and it like clicks. So it like is super ratchety on the waist. I thought that was very odd. It reminds me of an old clacker toy or something like that. Then we've got shoulders that swivel around. They get restricted by his cape, which is permanently plugged into his back. So you can only get him to to go that way unless you swing out the arm more, and then you can get him to go all the way around. Then they hinge out. This one is easy to move. The right shoulder is easy to move in and out like that. This one is partially ratcheting, and it's very tough to get it to move. I thought I was going to break this when I first moved it, and I was very scared because this figure is expensive nowadays. But it did move. Nothing was permanently stuck, and nothing broke when I went to move anything. Then he's got single elbow joints, and those are ratcheting. They go up like that, and then down like that. And then he's got swivel wrists, and those swivel all the way around. He then has a head that will hinge up quite a bit and hinge down quite a bit, and then it goes side to side. I don't believe it's a ball joint underneath there. I think it's just, it might be a ball. It does move a little bit side to side. It's tough to tell, though, because, like I said, this hood is not removable. So you can get this hood to kind of go up and down a little bit and get different looks by hinging his head up or hinging his head down, but you're going to be stuck with gravity pulling it down at some point. The best look is really just to have it sit there and hinge the head up as much as you can. So there you go. As you can see, he does stand well on his own, though. Sometimes this cape can help support, because the cape is, while it's pliable, it is thick enough to support the figure. So you can get, even though that one, like I said, that one leg joint is a little wonky, where it won't hinge in any more than that, you can get the cape to support him. So you can get this figure standing on his own quite well. Like I said about the sculpt, it is very detailed with sinewy muscles. There's a lot of lines. I can see veins across the chest and in the arms. There's wrinkles all along the gloves. I like this, too, that he's got sort of brass knuckles or spiked knuckles on his right hand. It's permanently as a fist, so you can only use this hand to hold those moon darts. But I do like that. I do like that it's sculpted with that weaponry right there. The paint detailing is nice. There's silver highlights on all the white. Silver on the bases of the feet. There's little silver moons on the belt. Silver on the little knuckle things. And there's a sort of, the whole thing is cast in the pearlescent plastic, where there is black or gray highlights that have been sprayed over the muscles, so you can see those. And then the cape itself is white on the back, and then has a black and silver and white kind of spray on the inside. And there's a lot of lines in the cape, too, to, again, mimic maybe that Finch art. The head itself is black with white eyes, and that black sort of bleeds down onto the neck, where they shaded the neck more. So that way when you have the helmet or the hood over him, it's not immediately glaringly white on the neck. So they did a spray app along the top of the collar area, so that when you're looking through the hood, you're not seeing all this stark white underneath there. Overall, I really do like the sculpt. I think the articulation works for the time, 2006. Again, it was a while ago. It's not up to today's standards of figures, but for an older Marvel Select, it's pretty decent. Let's look at him next to some other Marvel Select figures and some other Marvel Legends and stuff. First of all, let's bring that current Hasbro, well, not super current, but the most recent Hasbro Moon Knight into the picture with him. I'm going to bring this in just a little bit and drop it down. So there he is next to the current Moon Knight. Now, this is two totally different suits. I don't have the old Toy Biz Moon Knight, which would be the most close comparison between the two. All I have is Keaton's Hasbro Moon Knight right now. But as you can see, the size difference is quite a bit. You're not going to be able to fudge this into Marvel Legends. If for some reason you were to want to get this version of Moon Knight, it's not going to work. But just in case you want to see him next to some other Marvel Legends, here he is next to some other ones I think he has interacted with before, including Night Thrasher, which that kind of works, because Night Thrasher is supposed to be a teenager, so that somewhat works. And here he is next to, let's put Valkyrie in here too. So there he is next to Valkyrie from the Thor Ragnarok movie. Next up, let's see him next to, I got a Mezco 112th Wolverine sitting here that I've just got. So let's put him in there next to him. And this size isn't awful, because Wolverine is supposed to be short, but he's obviously not going to work with your Mezco 112s either. He's really meant for Marvel Select. He's not going to work for much else. You can maybe fudge some other figures in with him. Like I said, Wolverine is supposed to be short, so that kind of works. The Night Thrasher is supposed to be a teenager. That kind of works. But for the most part, you're going to want him next to your Marvel Selects. Here is the Marvel Select Wolverine. If I can get him to stand up without knocking anything over. There he is next to Wolverine. And the Winter Soldier from Disney Store. So he's still, even though he's an older figure, he still works across the line with Marvel Selects. I think he looks good next to Winter Soldier. He looks good next to the old Wolverine figure. And then last but not least, since he teams up with him the most in my recollections of comics and comics I read with Moon Knight, here is next to the Spectacular Spider-Man from the Disney Store, and next to the old Web of Spider-Man, Black Suit Spider-Man, hunched over figure that you can't get any higher. So you gotta keep in mind that Spider-Man is hunched over, and he's permanently hunched over, but the scale kind of works between all these figures. I think it looks good. All right, let's get these out of here and give our final thoughts on this guy. He's a cool figure. He's neat. Is he worth the current price, though? Which is, I think, currently $75 packaged. He's one of the more expensive ones because I don't think he's ever been reissued. He, the Watcher, Mephisto, those are expensive figures. So you have to think about, is it worth going back and picking him up? I think the only way it's worth going back is if you're a heavy Marvel Select collector and you really like the Moon Knight character. Then it's worth going back and grabbing him. He does work with current displays. I think some of those older Marvel Selects, like Punisher in the trench coat, I don't really like him that much. I don't think he looks good with current Marvel Selects. The old Ultimate Spider-Man, some of those Ultimate figures just don't work. But I think he does. I think he looks nice enough that he can still display with current figures. I wish they would reissue him, but I understand it's such an old figure and such an old style that he might not ever get reissued. I don't even know if they even have this mold anymore to do a reissue on, which I think may be some of the reasons why we don't get reissues on some figures. But $75, if you can get him in that range, like 50 to 75 for a packaged one, that's not too bad. When current Marvel Selects are now moving up to $30, you're paying double for him, but he's a figure that's 13 years old that hasn't been reissued. He's got an awesome display base, and he's not bad as far as the figure itself goes to plug in with your other Marvel Selects, right? As always, you can hit the info section below if you want to check out a gallery of Moon Knight. I don't know if I can post a link to any place that has him for sale, other than maybe linking Amazon to see if maybe one shows up cheap. I would say that if you really want one, maybe go for a packaged one, though. I'd be a little scared about some of these joints being loose if you got a loose one. And again, like I was really scared to move that joint, I'm afraid that maybe you might take the chance of getting a really loose one or one where somebody's popped it and broke it and then glued it back together again. Just buyer beware. And so it's sometimes better to buy a packaged one so that you know going into it to be careful moving the joints for such an old figure. All right. I don't know what we're going to do next. If you guys want to leave a suggestion in the comments below as to another figure you'd like to see. Like I said, I do have a lot of older releases like Moon Knight here that I've never opened, and I would love to do a review for you if you want to see one. Yeah, so leave a comment below if you want to see a certain figure. Otherwise, I'll probably just move back to doing Iron Spider or something like that. Maybe Planet Hulk. That'd be fun, too. All right. Hit the info section for a gallery, and I'll talk to you guys next time.